Hello everyone, welcome to yet another day of Advent of Code. Today we'll be doing day 6, so let's get to it. Alright, day 6, I'm ready for this. Okay, tuning trouble. The preparations are finally complete. You and the elves leave camp on foot and begin to make your way towards the Star Fruit Grove. As you move through the dense undergrowth, one of the elves gives you a handheld device. He says that it has many fancy features, but the most important one set up right now is the communication system. However, because he's heard you have significant experience dealing with signal-based systems, when you see things like this, it's referring to past year's problems here. So you could read up all about all of the stuff that you have had experience with in the past, apparently. He convinced other elves that it would be okay to give you their one malfunctioning device. Surely you'll have no problem fixing it. As if inspired by comedic timing, the device emits a few colorful sparks. To be able to communicate with the elves, the device needs to lock on to their signal. The signal is a series of seemingly random characters that the device receives one at a time. To fix the communication system, you need to add a subroutine to the device that detects a start of packet marker in the data stream. In the protocol being used by the elves, the start of the packet is indicated by a sequence of 4 characters that are all different. The device will send your subroutine a data stream buffer, your puzzle input. Your subroutine needs to identify the first position where the 4 most recently received characters were all different. Specifically, it needs to report the number of characters from the beginning of the buffer to the end of the first such 4-character marker. For example, suppose you receive the following data stream buffer. Okay, so MJQJ, so the J invalidates these 4 from being it, and this doesn't work. And this doesn't work because there's 2 Qs, and those are 4 different ones. So index would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I believe. Yes, 7th character. Okay. Once it does, the last 4 characters received are JPQM, which are all different. In this case, your subroutine should report the value 7 because the first start of packet marker is complete after 7 characters have been processed. Here are a few more examples. Okay, so we got that. How many characters need to be processed before the first start of packet marker is detected? All right, that's an interesting one. So, what I'm thinking right off the bat here, yesterday we did the stacks in the stack data structure to do the moving of the crates. I think that this might be good to try doing a queue and then kind of traversing the queue and seeing what when you get to that point. So let's give that a shot. We've got a few examples this time. This is the first time we've had more than one example. So this one here, let's go ahead and go back to our code. And new folder of 6. I'm going to create example a.1.input.txt and example a.1.output.txt would be 7. Let's, oops, not folder, file. Example b.1.input.txt is going to be this one here. And example b.1.output.txt would be 5. Okay. And example c.1.input.txt should be this one. And example c.1.output.txt would be 6. Excuse me if I clear my throat or cough. I will try not to, but I am feeling a bit under the weather today. Example d.1.input.txt is going to be that, and that output is 10. Example d.1.output.txt is going to be 10. And then finally, example e.1.input.txt is going to be this one. And example e.1.output.txt is going to be this. Oh, nope, not that. It's going to be 11. Okay, and then let's get our puzzle input. Oh boy, that's a big one. Input.txt. And finally, solve.js, which will have a solve1 function. Takes in lines, and a solve2 function, both of which need to be exported. Oops. All right, perfect. Let's just run and make sure we have this right. Index, node index.mjs, and we're doing day 6. Perfect. Okay. Now we're ready to start. So, as I said, I think we read these into a queue, which, I mean, really we don't have to like iterate and add them to a queue. We can just say like lines dot for each. Oh, so we got, oh, there's only going to be one line. Okay. Okay. So we just say const input equals lines at position 0, and then we're just going to split it on no character. That should give us an array of characters. We can use it as a queue. All right, so then we'll just say for let I equals 4, I is less than input.length I++. Now, the reason why I started at 4 instead of 0 is because we know we have to look at the last 4 characters, and the answer is going to be that index. So I figured it'd be easier to do that than have to worry about adding and subtracting later. So we can say, let's grab the 4 characters that precede it. So we'll say const last 4 equals input.slice starting at I minus 4 and ending at I. Okay, so let's console log that out, make sure that we've got the correct substrings there. Yeah, console.log last 4. I just realized though that it's going to do the puzzle input and it's going to be massive. Yeah, I didn't want that. So I'm going to make one more adjustment here. What I did to make it so that it wouldn't console log for the output is I'm basically telling it, instead of doing normal console log, do this thing that is actually an empty function, do nothing. So I want that for if the lines are greater than 100, but probably also if the length of the input to begin with. Let's see, where's our run test cases solve, lines read file, So we'll say if there's more than 100 lines, or if there's only one line, and that line dot length is greater than 100. Maybe that will help. Let's try that. And I think that, yeah, that is actually correct. Okay, so it is only doing the examples, not the actual one. So if we look at the first example, we start with that, and then we have that. Okay, so this seems to be working correctly so far. Let's go ahead and close everything except for solve.mjs here. Okay, so now that we have our last four, we just need to make sure that all four of them are unique. So we'll say maybe, so we could iterate through them and see if the index, the first index of each element is the same as the current index. So what I mean by that is we could basically say last four dot find value number, index number, perfect. So we want to see one where the value and index, we will take that information and say last four dot index of the value, and that index of should return the first index in the collection where it matches this value. So for the first one, so let's take one that has a duplicate. We'll iterate through this, and it'll be like, where's the first M? And it's like, it's right here. And we can say, oh yeah, that's the same as this index. So we can actually say, get rid of those curly braces so it doesn't implicit return there. And so we can say, this has to be the same as index. Oh, except for we want to find one that's different than the index, right? And that will tell us if there's a duplicate. So we'll say const duplicate equals find something in the last four where if you look for the index of that value, it's not the same as that index. So continuing this example here, so the first one, it would be like, find M, 0. 0 is equal to 0. We're good. Move on. J, that's going to be at 1. 1's the same as that. Great. Q, that's going to be at 2. 2 is the same as that index. Great. Now we come to this one and it says J. Oh, we found it at 1. 1 is not the same as 3, and so that will give us our duplicate there. Okay, so then we say if duplicate because if it can't find it, it's going to return null. So we can say if duplicate, we want to return I, basically, right? Okay, let's see if it works. Incorrect. It always says 4, no matter what. Interesting. Okay, perhaps we should do something like this. Instead of doing a find, we'll do a for loop, and we will say char, let char in last 4, and oh, but we need that index, so we probably still need to do for let j, because we're already using I, equals 0. J is less than last 4 dot length j plus plus. And we can say const char is going to equal last 4 at the position j. Then we will say last 4 dot index of char const first index equals that. And if they are different, so if first index is not equal to j, then return j. No, return I. Return I. Okay, let's see if that works. We are still just getting 4 forever and always. So let's just do a console log here. And we'll do char, say I, char, j, char first index. Let's see what we get when we do this. Okay, so right. Right, we're not trying to find one that's not unique to solve it. We're trying to find one where they all are unique. Right. That makes sense. I'm going to back it up because I liked my original solution better. Okay, so let's find one that is a duplicate. If there's a duplicate, then we're going to continue. Oh, if there's not a duplicate, then we're just going to return I. I was just so close. I just had my logic inverted there. So now we got 7, 5, 6, 10, and 11. My output is 1651 for part 1. So I'm going to paste that in there. And we got a gold star. Woo! All right. So I'm going to take just a 30-second break, and then I'll be right back for part 2. And we're back. Thanks for your patience. Let's continue to part 2. Part 2, your device's communication system is correctly detecting packages, but still isn't working. It looks like it also needs to look for messages. A start of message marker is just like a start of packet marker, except it consists of 14 distinct characters rather than 4. Here are the first positions of the start of message markers for all of the above examples. Okay. So we have all the same inputs but different outputs for for part 2. You know what? I'm going to do this the node way. So I'm going to say node, and I'm going to say fs.reader_sync, and I'm going to tell it to go into 2022/06. And this is uppercase. Okay, so there's our files, and we will say dot filter, and I'll say f, and then I'll have a regular expression, or nah, I don't even need a regex. I can just say f dot includes and say input, and then say dot for each. We will take that and do fs.copy file sync from the source path, which is going to be path.join 2022/06, and the file name. So we're going to copy it from there to path.join 2022/06, and then f.replace .1 dot with .2 dot. I think I got that right. Oh no. Did I? Undefined. Hey, did it work? It looks like it maybe did. Yes, sweet. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the outputs. And then I'll just go and change those. So 2A output is going to be 19 and then 23, 23. Okay, 19 A B2 output 23, C2 output 23, D2 output 29, and then 26. Okay. All right, so now if I bail out of here and I do this again, we have 19, 23, 23, 29, 26, which is correct. Okay, so now we're doing the same thing, only we are looking for 14 distinct characters rather than 4. Okay, so let's copy this and paste it into here. This is a starting point here. And let's say instead of I equals 4, we're starting I 14 and 14. I now see that I could probably just generalize this to find n, right? And just rename this to last n. And then we'll say const length equals 14, or maybe unique length. And then I can have that there. Or, you know what, I just like n better. It's a number. Okay, now if we run this, everything's correct. 3837 is our answer. So let's go back here and go to 3837. That is correct. Woo! We have gotten both stars. So since I was able to solve that so quickly, I have actually been thinking that throughout the month I could swap between different languages. So I've got a solve.mjs here, but can I do the same thing in, let's say, PowerShell? So I'm going to create a file and I'm going to say solve.ps1. Okay. And we'll say, let's do a function, and we'll call it solve1, and we'll take I can do it here, param, and we'll say string array lines. Okay. So what would it take to translate the code I have here in JavaScript over to PowerShell? Well, I'm just going to copy and paste it to start so we can just kind of look at what we did. I'll comment this out. So PowerShell, we may or may not do things the same. There are definitely some different kinds of ways of doing things in PowerShell. So for example, we can just say like input equals lines at 0, and then say split on nothing. But instead of doing that, because I'm not even sure whether or not that would work in PowerShell, we can actually try it right now. We can just do split like that. Oh, it looks like it does. So maybe that's the most PowerShell-y way that you could do it. Another way I was thinking that you could do it is doing something like line 0.toChar_array. So that's using the built-in .NET string toChar_array method. So one of the things I really like about PowerShell is it's built on .NET, and just underneath the surface, even if they have stuff like this, you know you can always tap into the power of .NET. So yeah, both of those will work. So we'll say also works, and I'll put .NET way. Okay, so then the next thing we need to do, now that we've gotten the input, we want to iterate through it. And so what we can do there is we can still do a for loop. We can say I equals 0, or actually 4. And you know what, I'm going to just generalize this. I'm going to say solve n, right? And I'll say int n. Okay, so I starts at n, and then I is less than input dot count or length. Both of those actually resolve to the same thing, I believe. I plus plus. So a little bit different syntax, but basically the same there. Okay, the next thing we want to do is slice the array. And actually, I'm wondering here if it wouldn't be better just to leave it as a string, because you can always do a substring, right? And that way you don't have to worry about it as an array. So let's actually do that. Let's just say input is line 0. Input.length still works because string has a length. And then let's solve it with a substring. So we'll say const, we'll say substring is going to equal the input dot, okay, it doesn't recognize that it's a string. So let me just make sure I've got my type help here in case I mess this up. Substring starting at 0, no, starting at n, no, sorry, I minus n, and going to I. Okay, so I'm going to swap that out with input there. Okay. I'll see you in a few minutes, okay? Okay, so now that we've gotten that substring, we can do this again. And so here's the thing is maybe it would be easier to do ask for find value index. If we just have a string and we say ASDF and we do for each object we want to just output that, that's not going to give us the different characters. So maybe we do want to actually split this on that. But at least we're not splitting twice. I don't know. Maybe at this point it's just 6s. Okay, so now let's see if we can do this index of. So we will say let's say duplicate is going to equal our substring dot index of, and that's going to be but we still need to iterate through it. So it'll be substring, we can do for each object. And inside the for each object, the $_ is basically your iterator, not iterator, but like the current value in the for each, right? And so we can then say, we'll say char is going to equal that. We'll say first index is going to equal substring dot index of char. But then we have a problem here because I was passing in value and index here. The only way to do that in PowerShell, I believe, is to have something that's iterated outside, that's incremented outside. So we're still stuck with doing something like j equals 0 here. Okay, so then we would have to j++, right? So then we can say if first index is not equal to j, then we return I. But in PowerShell, you have to be very careful because return doesn't mean the same thing as it does in languages like JavaScript. So I could do this. I could say return I, and it would technically work in this situation. You have to be very careful because anything that is not assigned to a variable or piped to out null ends up getting put into the output of this function. So really, when we say return, usually that means we're returning one value out of a function. But in the case of PowerShell, return $I is actually just shorthand for saying write output I and then return. So this is strictly supposed to be used for control flow and not necessarily for writing output. If I were to just put like something like this, 0 right there, without any assignment or piping or anything like that, this would fall out of the pipeline and out into the pipeline for whoever called solve n. So you would get a 0 and then you would get the I here. So that's one thing you have to be super, super careful about when you're writing functions in PowerShell, is that you are always making sure things get covered. Now, I don't think J++ will go out because that by itself is an assignment shorthand. But yeah, I prefer doing write output and then return just because it makes it more explicit what the intent was there and reminds me that I always have to be watching for things being written to the output that I don't intend to be written out. Okay, so I think that should do it. It says, oh, input's an automatic variable. Is this as well? Oh, it's assigned but not used. That's fine, we can just do that. Yeah, that should work, I think, hopefully. So what we'll do is input, let's rename to something else like line 1. That way we won't have any kind of conflict with the built-in, and we don't have any more warnings here, so I think we're good. Let's go ahead and call this and see what happens. So let's grab one of these and go back here, and we will say solve n, and we are going to give it our lines is going to be that, and our n is going to be 4. Okay, and let's see what that outputs if we go cd 2022/06 and do ./solve.ps1. Okay, it does not like what I'm doing here. It's saying exception calling substring with 2 arguments, index and length must refer to a location within the string. So I've done something wrong with my substring. So we start out with it at n. So we go from 0 to n. Oh, and it's starting, I is less than line 1.length. So we got 4, 4, 5, 5, 5, 6, 6, 6, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 12, 13, in it. So something is clearly wrong about this. Solve n. Here's our lines. Here's our n. Maybe we should write host or substring. So this write host is different than write output in that this will basically be a return value or an output of this function. This just goes straight to the console. So what happens when we do this, let's start mjqj, jqjpq. Interesting. So I minus n, are we changing n at all? I equals n. I++. The length. Oh, I wonder if this substring is actually looking for a length rather than an end index, in which case we would always have the same length, which is interesting. I thought when I did dot substring and we look at, does that give us help here? Come on. I thought it said something about an end index, but I got that wrong. Okay, so now we've got that. Ah, I see the problem here. Because I'm in for each object, this is a function here. We're returning out of the function but continuing to go in this function. So what I really need to do here is a nested for loop. As fancy as doing pipe to for each object is. So we're going to say J chars that, except for no, it's going to be substring at J. Okay, let's see if we get a better result this time. Oh, we have too many curly braces now, and there we go. We have 4. That's a problem. First index not equals J. Oh, right. I ran into the same thing where I had things backwards here, right? If there's not a duplicate, then we return. So we're trying to find a duplicate. So we're saying this would be the duplicate. But then if there's no duplicate, okay, so we could say duplicate equals null, and then we would say duplicate equals J. But then after we get through all of this, we say if we could do not duplicate, and then we'll say return I, except for we'll do it this way, write output I and return. Okay, so that that should work. Maybe. Let's comment out the right host. And we get nothing. Nothing out of it. If not duplicate. If the first index is not the same as J, duplicate gets assigned to J. And let's just write host J and write host I. So it's getting there. I guess we could say if duplicate equals null, quick fix. That's fine. I don't care. We did say 4 for that. What if we do a write host here? Never hits that. Not even once. First index not equals to j. J is our... Oh, we need to start at 0. Right, so what I did was I was grabbing the first n, but then starting at the end of the string, so it never actually found it. That was a copy-paste error. Oh, that was pretty... And then this should be substring.length. Oh my gosh. That was a major copy-paste error. I am super embarrassed. Let's try it again. And we get 5. And is that correct? Example 1 output. It should be 7. So that's not correct. Why is it not correct? What are we doing wrong here? So basically, let's see. Let's just right host the substring that it thinks there's not a duplicate in. And that is completely bogus. Completely bogus. Am I doing anything else wrong here? So we're starting at 0, grabbing the thing out of the substring while it's less than the length of the substring. Grab the char, grab the first index, and what is j? Duplicate equals j. Oh, but if it's 0, well, let's just duplicate equals char. Okay. Was that? No, that didn't do anything. So maybe let's do that. So it thinks there's a duplicate there. It does not think there's one there. Is it because we're off by 1 or something? Let's see. Starting at 0. Get the char at 0. Substrings, index of that char. Right host char and right host first index. Okay, so we start up here, 0. Uh-oh, there's a problem here. Because we're starting at 0, the chart that we output first should be the first one in the sequence, but that's not the case here. Wonder if I write post and do substring.length, what is that? 6. There are 6 things in this substring that you can only see 4 characters in. Oh no! Right, so substring. So yeah, maybe doing the split on empty is not what we want to do. If we do a 2-char A here, let's see what we get. Okay, so at least we're getting M as index 0. Q is index 2. What? Why are we... Oh, because we're J++ing twice. Because we converted it to a for loop. Oh no, and we've got J equals 0 here and J equals 0 there. Man, this is not a good day for me. 7, that's the correct answer. Okay, so now that we've gotten that working, let's get rid of our right hosts. And Okay. Oh, whoops, I got rid of write output there. We still need write output, just not write host. Okay, 7, perfect. Okay, so then what we can do, let's just create a quick little function, function, and we'll say solve 1. Well, actually, let's just say read input. What am I doing here? What am I doing? Basically, I want to say, what directory is this in? PS script root tells me that. And then I can say PS script root, and I'll say get child item in PS script root. That should return an array of all the different files in there. So then we can say group object, and the grouping for this, we could actually do so we want to group it both by input, well, by example name, really. So we'll grab the file name, we'll split it on the first dot, and then we'll grab the first thing from it. So I can just do that. Okay. So if we just execute that, what do we get? Group. So basically, I want to take this in as a string and say split on dot. Oh, that's a problem. This must be a regular expression. If it is, then dot means anything. So what if I did that? Okay, got it. Okay, so then the other problem is I don't want all of this bit here. So we will say, let's break this up here, and we'll say file name is going to be equal to, actually, I don't think we even need to put things in there. We can just say this dot name, and that should just get the file name, not the full path. So we're going to get the name, and then we can split on dot, and then grab the first one. Yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted, actually. Okay, so we're gonna get the child item, group it by that. Let's see what it gets us now. Cool. So we have 4 of each of these examples. So that makes sense because we've got an input and an output for 1 and an input and output for 2. So then we can say maybe we could actually just do, because it would be nice to get the combination of A1 and A2. In which case, it's probably best that we don't just split on the period, but instead split on something else, or even do like a regex. but that would be like regex.split. Or I could just come back here and just do split, and then put my regex in here, which would be something like, I want to split on the second dot. So I'd have to have like a negative look ahead or something like that. Or look behind, negative look behind. I'm trying to remember how I actually do that. I think it's going to be like something like, I don't know, something like that. And we have a dot and a number. And then a dot. I'll be really amazed if this works. No, that didn't work at all. Well, it kind of did actually. Oh, because I didn't grab the first thing out of it. Oh my word, I can't believe that worked. And not having to look up that regular expression syntax. So basically what this is saying is we don't want to consume this from the string, but we want to find a dot that comes immediately after a dot and number characters. Okay, so that's pretty awesome. Okay, so now that we've got our groups together, we could just chug through these, and we want to get rid of the solve one. So we will say where object sorry, lost my train of thought there for a second. The group is going to be dot name not equal to solve. So we don't want to have that in there. But now we can go through each of these groups, pull the input, pull the output, and run this against it. So we'll say for each object, and this is starting to get pretty long, so let's do something about it. There's multiple ways to break this up on different lines. You could just do like this, and since there's a pipe, it will continue on to the next line. Or you can put the tick character, and then there has to be a space and then a tick, and then immediately the new line. I kind of like that because then I can kind of build up this wall of pipes here, and you can see very clearly that's what's going on, is that I continue to pipe things through to the next. Okay, so we've got for each object. What we want to do is transform this into an object for the inputs and outputs, and telling what part it is. So we'll say we'll take the group's name, we'll split it on a period, which we know we have to escape here now. So that's going to give us the example name and the puzzle part, right? So we can say segments is that, and then we can say name is going to be segments 0, whoops, and part is going to be segments 1. And we can just write that output, and I'm going to make this a PS custom object where name is going to be segment 0. Actually, let's just part is segments 1. that way we don't need to do that. Okay, but then we need to also get out of that the input and output. So that's going to be, so we've got the input.txt and the output.txt. So we'll say input file is going to be the group dot group, and then where object, this file name is going to be like star input star, and maybe put a dot on either side. Now this is more like a glob matching thing rather than regex when you're doing like, and so that's why I don't have to escape the periods there. Okay, so then we can do the same thing for output file, except for make this output. And then we can say input is going to equal get content input file, and output will be get content output file. Okay. All right, let's see what that gives us now. Cannot bind to path because it is null. Right, because the input, so there isn't an output for that one. So we'll say, so that's going to be null on the actual input. So we will say, since I'm in PowerShell 7, I can use a ternary. So I can say output file question mark get content output file, otherwise null. Oh, it's complaining on the input file. Right, because input.txt doesn't have a dot before it. Okay, cool. We're getting there. Getting there. Right, so now we can just say, for each of these things that we've just created, now we want to actually run the input against the function up here and see if it matches. So we'll say result equals, and maybe we have a mapping here. We can say n is going to be a hash table where 1 is going to equal 4. That looks really weird, but and 2 equals 14. So if we're doing part 1, n is 4, 2 is, we get it 14. So we'll say solve n, we will pass it the input, oops, and we will pass it n at position $_ dot part. Then we can say if $_ dot output, then we are going to check that and print it out. Otherwise, we're just going to write post output for $_ dot name is $result. Okay, so then this will be if result is equal to $_dot output and else. Okay, so then we can say write host output for whatever is correct and put the result in parentheses. Otherwise, write error output for this is incorrect. Expected, and then $_dot output dot result. Okay, I think this might work. Let's see. That is quite unfortunate. So I'm getting 0 for my output every single time. Maybe I should just write what I'm getting for each of these things here. So let's do write host, and we're going to write an object. And let's make it a PS custom object that has the following properties. It'll be input equals $_dot_input. Oops. Part equals $_dot_part. N equals $n at $_dot_part. And result equals result. Okay, let's see what I'm doing wrong here. Yeah, so n is not resolving to anything. So this is obviously not working. Let's make it a PS custom object. And then change this to be n dot that. But I think we might need parentheses around that. Let's see. Well, we are getting n correct now, so that's good. But we're still getting 0 out as our result every single time. What is our input? Is that? Are we passing that correctly to solven $_dot_input? Right here. So that's the same as that. And that we've got lines and n. Oh, we may need to wrap this in an array, perhaps, because it may be trying to unwrap it and then, let's just say string array. Just try to force it into that and see what we get. Input a string array, or 1 part 2. Okay, so let's try that on the actual here and see what we get. Cannot convert a value to int32. Oh, that's a problem. Oh, I probably need just another set of parentheses around all of this. Still getting 0. Oh man. Maybe I need to be more explicit and say lines is going to be that. And n is going to be that. Let's try that. Still getting 0. So we're still getting the correct line there. Let's look at n. Oh, n is always 0. Okay, this is starting to make a little more sense. So maybe we need to parse it as an int, or at least cast it as an int, to be able to get that to come through. So let's try that down here. We will cast it to an int, and we will wrap it in parentheses. Oh, and I never changed the syntax around. Oh, how embarrassing. That's probably what the problem was the whole time. Yeah, let's try that. Okay, it was correct for all of those, so that's good, but it wasn't correct for that. Oh, because there was no part, right? So what we could do maybe here then is, gosh, we need to basically run the input against both part A and part B there. And let's actually remove this right host now that we've fixed that. Let's make it a little bit more concise. Oh no, I need to remove these right hosts as well. Okay, cool. Output for input is 0. Oh, we probably should put and we will put dash and then $_ part is correct and incorrect. Okay, A1, A2. Okay, so we're getting all of our examples right. Now we just need to fix the input here. So I think maybe we need to have it be like this. So we'll have our result, only if there's output, we're going to do that. And otherwise, we're going to say result 1 is going to equal this, and instead of doing part, it's going to be n.1. I think that's the way you do it in PowerShell. Kind of strikes me as strange, but I think that's correct. And then result 2 -1 -2 result 1 result 2. All right, is this gonna work? No, it's not. Oh, because I didn't pass .2 there. And did we get the same answer that we got here? Let's go back to part 6 and 1651 and 3837. We've got it. So that was definitely a challenge. I'm going to pull this bit of code out into something like index.mjs so that if I do PowerShell in the future, I can just use that testing harness instead of having to write it. It's a pretty simple thing here, but it ended up having a bit of nuance that was a little bit tricky there on the testing harness side. So just to make this more consistent with the JavaScript equivalent, I'm going to put function solve2 and have it return, so we can just do lines and have it return solve n lines, and n's going to be 4 for solve 1. This will be solve n lines 14. Right. All right. That's crazy. A lot of fun. Kind of working it out in a different language than JavaScript, where I would say right now my brain thinks in JavaScript mostly, but I do have quite a bit of PowerShell experience as well. Switching between the two pretty quickly can be quite a challenge. All right, well, thanks again, everyone, for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow with part 7 of the Advent of Code. Until then, take care of yourself, and we'll see you soon.